Hello and welcome to Photography Out Loud. My name is Paul Davis, and as always, I'm joined with my colleague Joel Longbone. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, got through it
So I
that
was
week,
just
didn't I?
laughing at both of us. I was like grooming ourselves before we come on camera.
I know, yeah. As in our kinky beards, eh?
No, beard kink in our beards. You and your spot metering and kinky beards.
Hey, we said we weren't going to mention that.
We are definitely going to mention it more than once. Just wait till Johnny's on.
I know. That's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing. How you doing, Joel? You okay?
Yeah, I'm great. You?
Have you had a good week?
Yeah, I think so. It's been another bizarre week, but good week.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't even feel like it's been a week. It's gone so fast.
I kind of know what you mean, actually. Yeah.
It's just very bizarre.
There wasn't any bank holiday this week, no, was there? No, it was a full week, wasn't it?
That was last week.
Oh,
See,
no.
that's how fast it's gone. You think we had bank holiday Monday, this Monday.
And that's the thing. We shouldn't be thinking like this anymore. We should actually know now. Things are starting to feel a little bit more like normal. So we should know at least what day of the week it is and whether there's bank holidays on the go or not.
Yeah. I don't know. And then we've got another one in like 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Oh
dear me. Right, what's that word I'm not supposed to say? Brilliant, fantastic, amazing. Yes. Once again, I don't think there's too much news this week, is there?
Not really.
In the old photography sort of.
Not in terms of new products.
No.
I'm sure there's plenty of news in terms of interesting things that people have done. Maybe we should start doing that as well. Just stories that we've heard in the news.
What, the news?
Or the general news or the photography industry specific news. Maybe that's interesting.
I thought that's what it was, photography specific. Oh, I know what you mean. So like other,
not new products,
not like cameras.
I mean, like if some photographers worked on an interesting project that we think was cool, maybe we should talk about that as well.
That's quite a good idea.
Well, we'll see what people think. If we get a load of comments going, nah, don't bother, then we won't.
Yeah.
But if you put in the
comments below,
that you'd like us to bring up stuff that we find cool, like stuff that might be inspiring, then let us know in the comments. If not, we might just do it until you tell us not to. I feel like that's how we do it most of the time.
Yeah. So, but we do listen, don't we, Joel? So we're like when people recommend stuff. So we always look through the comments on any of the advertisement that we do for Photography Out Loud, and also the live comments coming through. So we always take on account all of the lovely comments that come through. So please keep them coming. We do read them all. Thank you very much.
We do. And we've got more ideas to come. It's just difficult at the moment. Yeah. But like our show, we're not doing our show on May bank holiday weekend like we normally would, but we have something up our sleeves. But given the current situation, and also with Sarah still not very well, we just thought it'd be best, because we know Sarah wants to be part of it because Sarah's awesome, and we hope she gets better soon.
And it's a special year for us as well, isn't it? So it would like we'd have to do it with Sarah, or it would be weird.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So get well soon, Sarah, so we can have a fun show. And she knows the idea we had. She knows the ideas we've had, and she loves the ideas. So
yeah, Sarah came up with some amazing ideas actually for the show.
She did indeed.
But we're just going to have to keep it under wraps again. We've been promising, haven't we? That we're going to say what we've been doing.
Oh, it's going to be awful if somebody just turns up and goes, just people are like, well, that's a rubbish idea. We're like, oh man, we worked so hard on the ideas, and then they just
building up the hype.
So shall we go to the comments?
Let's have a look at comments. I've got a little bit of camera related stuff I want to talk about, but let's see who's watching.
Okay. So David Yeoman, straight in there. Good afternoon. This week's subject, so much potential to upset so many people and be wrong at the same time.
Clickbait, innit?
clickbaited. It's fine. It's in the photography industry. Well, David, we're glad you're with us because we know you'll hold us to account and to keep us humble as you always do. So maybe start putting in the comments thoughts and ideas on what you think's the best landscape camera. Because it's intriguing because there's a lot to go into in quite a few ways, because landscape photography is different to different people, which we'll get onto. Is nightscape photography landscape photography, Paul? Right, answer that question later. Indeed. Steve says, afternoon guys, how is Sarah Jones? She's okay. She's still poorly, like we just said, but hopefully on the road to recovery. She's got medication and things like that to help her, and she's been given strict instructions to rest. So whether she's obedient to those instructions is a whole other subject, but I've changed the password on the email, so I know she can't be doing email work from home, so that's one thing. Johnny says, afternoon, likey lads, heard my name. Afternoon, Johnny. We're just talking about Paul's unfortunate spot metering incident. It keeps coming up in the shop occasionally. I have no idea why. Ian says, afternoon, you two. Hope Sarah's recovering again. Good afternoon to you too, Ian. And she'll hopefully get better soon. I think it might just be a bit of a time to heal. So Steve says, afternoon guys, where's a week gone? Great to see you. How's Sarah doing? It has gone so fast this week. I don't even quite understand how quickly it's been going, but it's good, I guess. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. So I think, I don't know.
Well, you set my work, Joel, so
that's true.
Have I been what I've been doing?
I've given you some boring work this week. Sorry, my bad. But it needs to be done so that we can provide better customer service. So
indeed,
it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. So Chris says, yes, boys. I don't know if that's got enough emphasis or not, or maybe it needs to be shouted. I don't know. I don't want to hurt anybody's eardrums, but hope you guys are okay. Yes, we are. Been a busy week. My bags under my eyes seem to suggest that I need to get more sleep. Looking sharp, gents. Thank you. I'm going for another haircut next week. So I'm just looking forward to no masks so I don't get beard kink anymore. So that is a real issue.
I had to trim my beard. I had to trim it because it looked like a big shadow last week, didn't it?
It did. And now you just got a lighter patch of beard where your chest hair's coming down.
I know, yeah. I'm going to have to button this up, actually. It looks weird, doesn't it?
There you go.
There we go. That looks even weirder now.
I know. No neck Paul. No. Anyway, moving swiftly on from the way Paul looks. Rob says, please recommend the Sigma 56 1.4 to everyone who shoots portraits, as it's a brilliant lens. Good. I'm glad you like it. Also, Rob, we have the GR3 Street Edition in stock now on your recommendation.
Yeah, it's very nice, actually.
We need to get it out of the box, actually, and have a look at it.
It's lovely.
Chris says, love to Sarah Jones as well. Hope she makes a speedy recovery. Hopefully she'll see this at some point and she'll see the nice comments that people have been leaving. Steve says, question for you. Ooh. Noticed LED lighting kit on the website. Would they be usable for portrait lighting, as would be brilliant in locations where lack of space for softboxes? Wow. So that's quite a question, because there's quite a lot you could go into with that. In theory, yes, depending on what LED kit it is and where you're going to be. But I would suggest that quite a few portrait photographers outside would still suggest strobe, I would imagine. Yeah. But Paul is
we'll put a pin in that and then we can do a session on it next week. How's about that?
Oh, there we go. That's sorted out next week. So
then we can talk about lighting indoors, outdoors, and sort of do a versus sort of thing. And once again, me and Joel can have an argument live like we're going to this week.
Oh dear. Dibs says afternoon. Good afternoon, Dibs. Good to see you. Andrew says hi everyone. Hi to you too, Andrew. Looking forward to seeing you when you come into the shop at some point. Stuart says my D7100 is the best. Nothing to do with me having no camera budget spare to upgrade. Hey, if it works for you, it's. I feel like 7100, 7200 have been very popular cameras, haven't they? they hit a good price point with features as well. So
they certainly do.
Johnny Mo, yes, that was the funniest moment on your afternoon lives. I couldn't stop howling.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm known for the classics.
Paul Davis providing entertainment
to the nation, trying. Hopefully. Yeah. Push that share button. There we go.
Yeah.
You never know what happens live. Especially
Johnny, if you know how to do memes or GIFs, can you sort one out for us for Paul? Paul would love it. And I might use it in my messages to Paul. I'll just add the GIF occasionally. Be great.
Yeah. Whenever I read you, it comes up on your phone.
Yeah. Nigel says, Prananda to you, Nigel. Croeso. I need to... No, I can say Croeso here, photography out loud, because photography out loud is like just a name, isn't it? Yeah. But we should figure out what photography out loud would be in Cymraeg.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Nigel, if you know what photography out loud would be in Welsh, let us know.
Yeah,
please. And Dib says, love my XT2 and XT3 for my landscapes, great image quality, lightweight, and the weather sealing is amazing too. This will be coming up later. Steve says, brilliant, would really appreciate. Yeah, we'll remember that, hopefully. Paul, remember. LED versus strobe on location.
Okay.
Note to self.
I'll write it down now.
With your non-existent pen and non-existent paper.
Yeah.
Because Paul doesn't carry pens around.
That's why I did like
pieces of paper
to type. I mean, typed, not pretended to type. Should we get into it, Joel?
Yeah. Didn't you say you were going to mention something photography related before we get into our... Okay, cool. So, landscape cameras or cameras for landscape photography.
Yeah. So we should start mentioning. So we started to have a conversation last week about looking into a new camera sort of thing, and then it came to us that we haven't actually gone over sort of what are the the more sort of better cameras or for each type of thing. Now, we have agreed on sort of one fact, haven't we, Joel? That
which is that we disagree.
Yeah, that, and also is that it does depend on the type of photography that you do, and ultimately depends on what you prefer and all that sort of thing. So, but saying that, there are sort of better cameras to do landscape with. Before we start, though, are we putting any sort of like restrictions on what is a landscape photo? Or
okay,
because like how far are you going to go? Are you going to go into like stupidly long exposure and like astro, or like are we going like what is a typical like landscape? Like what are we doing?
I think
I need some boundaries before I start recommending potential stuff.
Yeah, I think landscape is a general genre. I think the nightscape photography, like you mentioned, does come under landscape photography because it can include all the same things, just with a lot less light.
Right.
Put in the comments what you think. Do you think nightscape photography should be considered under landscape photography? Put in the comments to see what you think. But I would suggest that nightscape photography is a subgenre of landscape photography.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And then long exposure photography is a technique.
Long exposure landscape. Yeah.
Is a technique used in landscape photography. I think that's what I would suggest. Or yeah, I think that. And then you get things like Milton with his landscape photography that he ruins with motorsport photography, as one of our customers said. Which I quite liked, especially because Anglesey has Track Morn, which has
beautiful there.
I don't think there's a track that looks better.
Yeah,
in terms of its background, it's ridiculous. I'm sure there might be some tracks in the world, but I can't think of many where you go, I would happily go to that racing circuit, even if there was no cars, just to have a look at it, because the views from Track Morn are amazing. I think that's pretty much our only parameters for what landscape photography is. We might find more. Like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would sort of start to consider, because when you think landscape photography, you're traveling potentially a lot. You may want access to a camera sort of very quickly. And certainly if you're getting into photography, because we've always looked into what's the best way to get into photography, and people have been using their phones, so it'd be like almost the next step up from using a phone. And I think the first camera that I'd recommend, to get going with landscape photography would be something like the Olympus TG6.
Okay.
Nope. No, you're not having
it. I own a TG6, and there's not many times I would consider using it for landscape photography. However, it's great. It's waterproof and drop proof.
Yeah.
So if you are walking somewhere, then it does have a lot of the features that you might want if you're having to scramble to an odd location. I think it's a great camera, but it's limited.
Touch it on the side of your bag.
Yeah, it's true. And it's got a tripod adapter, all of that. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think as we go through this conversation, it doesn't hit the points that we think, or at least I think, are most useful for a landscape camera. It is quite a limited camera in so much that it's very unlimited in the fact that you can take it anywhere and you can drop it and stuff. I bought it so my children can get into photography. And it doesn't matter if they want to start trying to put nails into wood with it. It's going to be robust enough to take a battery.
That's what I'm trying to say, though, is like to get into photography.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you had other equipment, like you can have it literally carabined to the side of your bag, and then it's really good. It's better than a mobile phone, isn't it? We can both agree there.
Yeah,
I
think so.
Yeah, there it is.
It doesn't make phone calls.
I think better image quality than a mobile phone.
The great thing about TG6 is it does shoot in RAW if you want it to.
Exactly.
Its image quality is not fantastic. No. Which I think we can both agree, if you're buying a camera specifically for landscape photography, resolution is probably number 1 or number 2 on your list of necessary features. So I think I'll accept it. You can put it in the box or in the bag or whatever we're going to put these things into.
In the what? In the what?
I don't think a hat works, though.
Of course it does. Oh, we need to do some behind the scenes of our conversations. You put stuff. Isn't that a turn of phrase?
Why would you put
a turn of phrase
in a hat?
You put stuff in a hat, don't you?
Only if you're going to draw it back out again with a name on it.
Eh?
Maybe you mean throw your hat in the ring.
Oh, I'm getting them confused, aren't I?
So you put the camera in the hat and chuck the hat into the ring.
Yeah. I think that's where I was getting confused. So you can put the camera in the ring then.
Yeah, okay. We just need like a mini boxing ring.
Mini box,
cameras in.
So that can go in there. Right, okay.
So our wonderful viewers, if this makes no sense to you, just imagine a small boxing ring and we're putting cameras in there for this landscape photography conversation.
I wanted a big novelty hat. So when we started doing these, we could put them into...
Anyway, moving on.
I mean, what would you suggest, Joel? What have you suggested in the past when people come in?
For compacts or just any landscape camera?
I don't know, Joel. We've never done this before.
If it's just a compact,
what first comes to mind? Yeah. What first comes to mind?
If it's just a compact and somebody wants it for wandering around and they want something quite small and compact, probably a TZ. If they really wanted a bit more quality, 1-inch sensor, probably a TZ100 or TZ200.
Okay.
Or maybe an RX100 Mark 5A, because it's got the 1-inch sensor and it's got a very bright, fast lens. But equally, an RX 100 Mark 6 or 7, not for the focusing capability, but just because it puts together a 1-inch sensor and a long zoom, like TZ 100, TZ 200 does.
But you get into like grand there, aren't you?
Yeah, but we didn't talk about prices. We just spoke about size.
Too many variables on this. Why did we pick this? Because for that amount of money, though, like if you were spending that, you could start looking at sort of the mid-range mirrorless, couldn't you?
True, but size, if size was one of the most important factors, because some photographers I know use their phone or small compacts as almost a sketchbook for the images they want to make. So they'll go for a wander around the location, take images to build up kind of an idea of what they want to go back for. Then they'll figure out the time of day, what time of year to go with their big bad boy camera. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like price might not be as much of an issue if people are being very specific. But you know what? Equally, a TZ 90 or 95, I would argue, because you'd get those for the same price as a TG6, actually less money than a TG6. So
yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think I'd still have a TG6 over 95, but we'll leave that there.
Really?
Yeah, I would.
Backside illuminated sensor and a longer zoom.
Backlight illuminated sensor on the TG6 as well, mate. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but the zoom as well. The zoom as well, because it's only 5 times on TG6.
Rather have the ceiling on it, right? Anyway, but yeah, no, I think you're right though, because before we get too carried away, I think ultimately when you're looking at landscape photography, you do need to look at resolution, don't you? You need to look at, and I think the other important thing is going to be dynamic range, and we get that from essentially getting a bigger sensor, don't we? So general rule of thumb.
Here we go. This is where David Yeomans is going to be like, look, some people aren't going to be happy when you start dissing their APS size C sensors.
I'm not dissing it because I'm just between a compact, which is in the TG6, and a 1-inch sensor. Then they're both physically the same size. You know, both physically the same size. You've already kind of said that maybe money's no option here as well. Okay. So for landscape photography, you probably would be better going for something with a 1-inch sensor, wouldn't you? Because you're going to get slightly better resolution and you're going to get a high dynamic range. Okay. And that's really what we're always trying to achieve there. So I think you're right along the RX 100 series, maybe. And obviously going right up the range if you want the zoom, or possibly jumping across to things like the TZ200 and the Panasonic. As long as you're going to put them in a bag and look after them, because obviously they don't like the rain as much.
A little. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a little
I
bit,
think also a point to make on resolution is that it's not the be all and end all, because you can get exceptionally good shots out of cameras that are years old, and they produce fantastic images at 16 megapixels. Or less, because it ultimately depends where you're going to show your images. Are they going to be printed? If they're only A3, maybe A2, you'll be okay. But if you want to produce very large, detailed images, then I think you just have to accept that you're going to have to get something with high resolution and quite possibly a larger sensor. It's just physics at the end of the day. Yeah. And I'm sure lots of people can argue one way or the other on that. And it'll always go on until the end of time, whether megapixels are important or not. But I would suggest that they are for landscape photography. But equally, in that, if you have a higher resolution sensor, you are going to potentially decrease your dynamic range capability. Yeah, because as David Yeoman explained to us a few weeks ago, that the more pixels you put on a sensor, the amount of light you are able to capture in each pixel reduces. That's just physics. Yeah. So there might be a sweet spot. Maybe it is 24 megapixels, maybe it's 36 megapixels. maybe it's 50 odd megapixels.
And I think that will actually probably keep being redefined over the years, potentially to come as well, with new technology coming out. So, like the new magic number might change. I do feel at the moment though, that nice little sweet spot is full frame 24 million pixel. I really think it does sort of cover a lot of the bases there. So, and I think ultimately as well, it does work because
he just said, Joel, there are no pixels on a sensor-only photo sites. You're right.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just been told off by my lecturer at university or something. Do you not remember that lecture I gave to you not 2 or 3 weeks ago?
I know, and this is the thing.
There and out the other one.
Because we asked him to come on to try and help us get the right terminology down. Yeah. He's come on, he's explained it all to us, and we're still getting it.
And he did such a good job as well. I'm sorry, David.
It was amazing.
I'll remember for next time.
We will try and improve. We will try and improve. But
I think the other side of it, though, as well, is also camera specific in terms of what they've done to the sensor. I.e. like a low pass filter or anti-alias filter or whatever.
Yeah.
And for a lot of photographers, that's probably quite important for landscape photography, depending on what they're photographing and the quality of image that they want. So that's something to consider as well when you're choosing a landscape camera, is what sort of, the sensor, talking mostly about Fuji versus X-Trans versus Beta, and then also after that kind of decision that you've made, what kind of images you want to produce and how you're going to edit it afterwards, because each camera sensor requires a different way of extracting ultimate detail, which for most landscape photographers, not all, because some care more about the image than just, they're not as bothered about the quality per se as a pixel peeping photographer might care more about sharpness than content or mood. That feeling that an image can produce. So yeah, I think those are probably, I think the 2 top things are resolution and dynamic range.
Yeah. But then there is another little segue into that though, because once again, I'm still crying from before. So you've got, I just need to clear my throat. There we go. Do I sound more normal now? There we go.
Normal's relative for you, mate.
Yeah, I shouldn't really use that word. But then there is that small sort of snippet that, if you didn't want to do the editing side of things, and personally, I do feel it's quite an important part of landscape photography, really taking advantage of that dynamic range. But obviously, if you're wanting to really enjoy the outdoors and just sort of capture it sort of as you see and stuff like that, again, and we always keep mentioning it, it's very difficult not to recommend something like a Fuji at that point, isn't there?
For sure.
And they're all very good, depending on whether you're going for like the medium format stuff or even the coming back down onto the APS-C stuff, because the colors that are just coming out of it they're just so nice, aren't they? And they can really take a lot of that work out of the computer if you didn't want to go down that route. So if you're that type of person, but there is that option available, and obviously you can get into the editing side of things with the Fuji stuff as well. It's not just straight out the camera. They will produce the raw files so you can edit them on the computer. But it certainly definitely leans towards more of the photographer that just wants to get it potentially right in the camera, I would say.
Or when they're starting out and they just want to be able to focus on the craft of making the image in the field, rather than finishing the image back at home on a computer. And I think that is where Fuji makes life really, really easy with their color science. And I think that you would do well to start with a Fuji camera if you want to get into landscape photography, if you didn't want to play around on a computer, because they have a great range, great lenses, but also you can focus on your composition and just being there in the moment and not having to worry about color as much. That's not to say that there aren't other great cameras with good color science, but just straight out the camera, it's one of those things that I think is a great selling point of the Fuji range for sure. Right, before we move on, let's just make sure we've not missed any great comments. So
before we get too far down the rabbit hole as well.
Yeah, exactly. Steve has given it to us. Now, in Welsh, and I don't know if I want to make a complete and utter numpty of myself by trying to pronounce it. So I'm going to speak to one of my Welsh speaking friends and learn to pronounce it correctly. And I'll try.
And I'll have a go. Oh no, I can't do that.
I know,
we'll come back to you.
But Nigel says, say hello to Philip Evans, please. We will. He'll be in next week. Andrew says, does need to have land in it? Oh, that's true, because people do talk about seascapes and there's potentially no land in it.
Yeah.
So that I think that's an interesting point to make. So maybe scape is the top. Just like blank, just a line, scape.
I like
and then
that.
you put it in there. So
I'll stop landing
it. Yeah. Sports Pictures Cymru says, I have a D500, D810 and XT3. For landscapes, the XT3 is the best of the three. Just what we've said in terms of the colours especially. Dibs says this could be the whole of next week's show. That's very true. Steve says, yes, Joel, agree it's part of the genre. There we go.
Okay.
Eric says, just call it scapes, and then it covers everything. Tree, sea, land, astro. There we go. Job done. That is the definition.
Like, astroscape. So that's actually, so a landscape is a landscape. Astro is astroscape, isn't it? And then...
But then you would argue about an astroscape versus a nightscape, because I've heard photographers and astronomers define them differently. I never refer to what's traditionally astrophotography. I normally call it nightscape photography, unless it's through like a telescope and it's just stars.
Yeah, I agree.
Different again. So
I see astrophotography as just the stars, but once again, it's been defined as, I think the common thing for it now is if you said astrophotography, people would think a bit of a mountain, bit of a tree, and then the stars, going up.
The Milky Way arching.
The Milky Way, yeah.
Or the Orion's belt or something. Graham says, good afternoon, chaps. Good afternoon, Graham. Welcome to the talk. Hope you're enjoying it. Andrew says, at least the TG6 would survive being chucked into the ring. That's so true. David says, this is becoming a bit of a trial for Paul Davis. If you don't know what that's about, a few months ago, we were talking about trail cameras.
You don't tell them. You say to viewers, if you're not too sure what that is, it's in one of our previous videos. So you're gonna have to go
find
back
that episode.
Yeah, about trial cameras.
Oh dear. And then Rob says, like a tea, which I paid £400 for on eBay.
Awesome.
Good times. Johnny says, comedy duo. Maybe you can chuck one of Paul's trial cameras into the hat, ring, bag, and let that decide for you. Oh dear. Paul's gone. Right. Ian says, am I allowed to use my X100V or should I stop myself doing it? No, you can use an X100V because not only does it have Fuji colors, which are fantastic, it also has a built-in neutral density filter. So you don't even have to carry the ND filter around with you, just maybe a graduated one. So I fully endorse, if ever you needed me to endorse anything, an X100 series camera would be great. I've actually used an X100F to do some waterfall photography when I was in the lakes once. And I used the ND filter. It worked really well. It was kind of annoying when I forgot that it was still on. I was like, why is everything so dark? And then I suddenly realized that I was being a bit of a donut. So Steve says, if you're looking for a camera specifically for landscape, personal factors would be full frame. You can go along with that. Weather sealing, that is key. Although weather sealing might not be as much of an issue. one, if you're a fair weather photographer, but two, if you buy one of the rain covers that are available in various sizes, Vanguard, Think Tank. What's the kind of just all plastic clear ones that we sell? Rain sleeves.
Yeah.
Optec, aren't they? I can't remember.
Optec ones, yeah.
Yeah. But if you didn't have a weather sealed camera, that's not to stop you, because you can get covers. Image stabilization is so useful for low light without a tripod. That's an interesting one, because when I think about landscape photography, I don't really think about image stabilization. I think, for me personally, if I'm doing landscape, I want a tripod, because I think it slows me down, which is just a personal preference. It just makes me think about my image more, and I can focus on what's going on better. ISO extension, just as a few key points. Yeah, I think the low light capability, or I think the dynamic range linked with low light capability kind of comes together, doesn't it? In terms of it's not where, you know, somebody in gig photography or wedding photography cares about low light, and they do think about dynamic range, but it's different, isn't it? They're not necessarily trying to get detail in the same way the landscape photographers. Although you could argue that you don't really need a camera with high dynamic range for landscape photography if you want to do HDR and you do it tastefully.
Tastefully, yeah. That's
tastefully. In capital letters underscore. So, and David's already told me off for the pixels bit. Nigel says, great show, lads. Love the debate. However, unfortunately, I have to sign off. Catch you again. Cheers, Nigel. Glad you're enjoying it. Yeah. We may still be here in a few hours if you come back.
Just to round up then, Joel, have you got something that you would sort of recommend as like an all-rounder, that sort of, you know, a camera that sort of springs to mind?
I think if it's APS-C, probably a Fuji.
Okay.
If it's full frame,
can I just say, right, we did have a slight conversation this morning about roughly what cameras you wanted to sort of mention.
It's difficult though, isn't it?
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you've changed your mind basically, haven't you? You've had a real think about it.
Why? What do you think?
We haven't mentioned Olympus, and you were going to mention Olympus because...
Oh, yeah, because we didn't even get onto the, you know, if we were walking up mountains but didn't want a compact, we wanted better quality, then I think an Olympus would be fantastic. But not only for size, I think the Olympus would be fantastic because of lifetime.
Yeah.
I bought an EM10 Mark III just for lifetime.
Lifetime, high-res shot. It's got a fair few, and that see the way that Olympus have done it is they've tackled it with clever technology, haven't they? So because, you know, there's no getting around, you know, we do tend to sort of go with the full frame, and obviously Micro Four Thirds is half the size of a full frame sensor, so they've got to do something clever to get around this. So things like high res shot, not only does it increase the pixel, but it also increases the dynamic range of the photo as well. So if you're wanting something that is small, compact, interchangeable, weather sealed, but does have the option of potentially increasing the dynamic range and the resolution, then some of the Olympus range is very good.
Yeah, I think the great thing about Olympus is because the sensor's physically smaller, the camera can be physically smaller, and the lens can be physically smaller. And we sell a lot of Olympus gear to people who love being in the mountains, going for walks, but still want a great quality camera, but not having to lug around full frame or medium format. And I think, and also lifetime for me, if you're a beginner, especially to landscape photographer, then either a Fuji because of the colors or an Olympus because of lifetime. I think lifetime on its own, especially with long exposure photography, is just a no-brainer. It just works so well, and you don't have to sit there for minutes on end wondering whether your calculations were right. Yeah. It's just you just see it and you go, you know what, that's enough, and that works for me. So yeah, Olympus is good, or the G9, although doesn't quite have the same features as, and it's a bit of an older camera now. But the Panasonic was the G9 was a great camera.
I think if you're taking it seriously, I think
full frame, or medium format.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, once again, is landscape your thing? Is that the one thing that you really want to concentrate? Is that your hobby, or is walking and taking pictures your hobby?
Yeah.
Once again, we sort of, we and this is what sort of brought this conversation up this week, is that ask those questions in your head. What do you enjoy? Do you enjoy walking and taking pictures? Because I sort of fit into that sort of scenario. Or is landscape photography your thing? Is it do I enjoy sitting at a computer editing photographs? Because that is one thing that I personally enjoy. I like that. I like that process of it. So
you have Netflix and you're editing with your headphones on.
Mate, that's an ideal world for me. I love having something playing on, and then I'm just chipping away at an image, and I'm loving it. So I think if you're if landscape is, or scape, I think is what we're defining it as now to save any. Then I honestly think going up to something that is full frame, you're really going to start
which full frame then?
Mate, there's loads, because I mean, if you're on a budget, you can look at something secondhand. We've got a secondhand Canon EOS 6D at the moment, 500 quid body only. Stick an oldish L series lens on it. Once again, around 500 quid. You've got a breathtaking camera that is going to take some absolute awesome shots for you for under £1,000.
Didn't Nick Livesey say in his interview with us that he shoots on a 60?
60, yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, absolutely stunning.
Would you go mirrorless or DSLR for landscape?
I think. And I'll give you my reason, and then you can decide whether. I think having the option of not looking for the viewfinder really, really helps. Okay, so I don't think it actually matters, because I would probably put a DSLR onto live view anyway, so I could look at it on the screen, and I'm not looking through the viewfinder, because I think that does help. Sure. So I think if you're going to push me into a corner, probably mirrorless, because obviously I don't need to flip the mirror up to see what's going. But it wouldn't bother me.
So would you go to your roots with Nikon with a Z7 Mark II, or would you go
six?
Oh, you go for 6, okay.
Yeah, and then I don't need to spend as much money on lenses. Then I can keep it.
It's true. It's true.
And keep it.
Would you go R5 or R6 with a Canon?
R6.
Okay. And that's interesting on the resolution conversation. Okay, A7 R4 or R3? Lenses weren't an issue.
R4.
Okay. So R3 if lenses were an issue, R4 if lenses weren't an issue.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but it's like, again, it's different for everyone, isn't it? So, and I think and we've mentioned it in the past, with these high resolution cameras, you need to be so careful on the lenses that you pick for them. They're not cheap cameras, and unfortunately, you can't put cheap lenses on them, or you might as well step down the next level.
That's a good segue quickly.
Yeah, go on.
Just to make a point that what you mentioned about lenses is that in this whole thought process, think about the camera you're buying, obviously, but more importantly, what lenses you're going to use, because that will impact what camera you can choose and can use, especially if you're going high res. Then, like Paul was saying, you're going to need something serious for an A7 R4 or an R5 or 5DSR, like any of those, or a D850. Any of those high res cameras are going to need better glass, but equally it informs how heavy your gear is going to be and what images you're going to be able to make. Are you going to carry just a wide? Are you going to carry a kind of a travel zoom, or like a or that kind of 24-70, 24-105, or are you a long lens person like 70-200? I think that makes a big difference as to what camera you'd buy, to be honest, because that informs a lot of what the rest of the camera could be. Because you could argue that you'd buy a 6400 or 6600 Sony because you wanted lightweight, but you wanted APS-C quality. Or you could buy an A7C, so you get full frame, but it's not quite as bulky without the fake pentaprism housing on the top. But you could have a very nice G Master lens. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's more of a conversation because lenses are really, really important. And then again, if you're talking about a capped budget, a tripod and a shutter release. Shutter releases aren't very expensive, especially cabled ones. But a tripod, I think, would probably inform your photography in ways that a lot of people perhaps don't think about in terms of the weight of it, the size of it, etc.
Yeah.
Just my kind of 2 pence worth on that.
Okay. Right. So to actually recap, let's just read the title, the clickbait that we put on this. So Photography Out Loud. Best camera for landscape photography. Our advice is we really don't know. It does depend on the type of person that you are.
You should come into the shop and we'll help you.
And we should come into the shop and we'll help you because the best camera is the best camera for you. And, it's constantly that we say, there have been times where we say you probably don't need a camera for what you're doing. Maybe invest in, to what Joel said, potentially look at something else. And jump down into there. So some people might call us cowards for not actually putting an actual camera name.
I wonder whether David thinks that we've upset many people, or whether we were wrong with any of our suggestions.
It's just us, though, isn't it, Joel?
Oh, another kind of quick side note for small but full frame is Sigma FP. And the new one that's coming out, there's a lot of landscape photographers that are very eager to see what the new FP will do. It's very small. Yeah. It's full frame. And arguably, do you really have to hold a landscape camera?
No. Well, it's like I was saying, I'm not going to look through a viewfinder. So
ergonomics aren't an issue, are they? No, but I mean the grip. Because
a
lot of people use an FP with.
I can just keep it in its like box mode, can't you? Yeah, and literally on a tripod.
Yeah, which is similar to what you would have had back in the day with like a Rolly or a Mamiya.
Yeah,
medium format. True. Going back to that old school vibe of it's just a box stuck on a tripod.
Almost like Sigma know what they're doing, isn't it?
Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew?
And they have a magnetic cap.
Yes, and we'll end the conversation on that, but we will just quickly go into the comments. If there's any more, Joel, maybe people have just stopped watching altogether.
David says HDR is a pain for landscape photography if you have any wind. That's very true.
Very true.
Which is a great point on dynamic range. Steve says my fully loaded low pro backpack is like an SAS workout. You need an Olympus. It's worth it when I get the right results. Adore landscape, my passion, then portrait, then street. That's cool.
Yeah.
Tina says, I'm here, boys. Hello, Tina. Good to see you.
Hi, Tina.
Rob says the best camera is the one you can afford. I think there is a lot in that in terms of, again, it goes towards your budget. I think it should be the best lens you can afford and then pop a good camera on the back. FP is electronic shutter only, rolling effects and wind. Yeah, that is potentially an issue. But I've seen some stunning landscape photography shots out of the FP. So I feel like that's part of deciding what images you want to make as to whether it's the right camera for you. Balance is the issue with Andrew. Okay. Yeah, I think there is so much to think about. In terms of what camera. Okay, Gwynville says, lost you for a bit. What was your full frame recommendations? My XT3 my XT3 with IS lens doesn't need a tripod for quick shots. Yeah, so full frame recommendations, I think it comes down to having a try and depends on the type of photography you're into, as to what lenses are available, etc. X-T3 is fantastic. IS lens, yeah, you could argue you don't need a tripod. I personally think that a tripod is part of the process, but not necessarily always for physical necessity, i.e. image stabilization. Obviously, long exposure, you need a tripod, unless you're into wibbly wobbly ICM shots, which is a perfectly valid way of shooting photography, because some of the ICMs we've seen are mind-blowing. Like, I don't even understand how people can see an ICM shot. It just blows my mind. And Adam Adam says, nice beard, guys. Cheers, Adam. You'll have to come and visit us soon. We want to see the new Wandered bags, etc. So come along. And then Tina says, Gwynfor James, they said to go and try in the shop. It's true. I honestly think that cameras should be held to understand whether they're good for you or not. Because a lot of YouTube shots and YouTube videos and stuff will say, oh, the A7 what's it, or the R this, or the D whatever is the best camera in the world. But if you've got really big hands or very small hands, or you're not very strong or you're very strong, like, there's different cameras for different people, I think. And also menus. If you've been used to Nikon all your life,
it's very true.
And I don't think getting a Sony or Canon's probably your best bet, to be honest, because arguably you can't really buy a bad camera, especially now. Canon and Nikon have brought out Z and R, you know, like the R5, R6 and the Zs Mark IIs. I think that you'd choose any of those and get stunning results out of any of them. So there's our recommendation. Come into the shop to try them and have a cup of coffee whilst you do it. See, indeed. That's a great reason. So, oh, Adam says, I'll be there soon. Look forward to it. And Gwynfor says, I have enough cameras. That is a lie.
You
can't come into a camera shop and say you have enough cameras. That is just not true. Right. There can always be one more.
There always can. Just before we wrap up this episode, Joel, there are a couple of things that have been released. I think. Just let me read my notes. Oh yeah, that was it. So there's cashback that has started this week, hasn't there? So from a couple of manufacturers. So it's that point in the year where we start to roll into sort of that promotion sort of period where we start to see things like cashback promotions. So Sony have started their cashback promotion. So you can save up to £300 on selected items. Things like the Sony A7 Mark III, very good for landscape photography, is £200 cashback. So, and I think there's the £300 cashback on things like the A7R Mark IV as well. So, and then also there is cashback in the Panasonic series. So things like the G9 that you mentioned, Joel, I believe is in the cashback. And also Olympus have started cashback as well. So if you're wanting a camera that has all those wonderful sort of fun features, then things like the Olympus EM1 Mark III is on cashback at, let's see where that is, £175 cashback. So there's some quite nice deals out there at the moment. So good time to buy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's brilliant. Right. Any final thoughts? You can try and round this up into a nice little simple, easy sentence, Joel.
Not really.
Not really. No.
I don't know. There's so much to consider, and not in a making it over technical kind of way, because a lot of cameras you can make fantastic images. It's a tool at the end of the day. But there are cameras that will make your life easier for certain things. And I think you just have to ask yourself the question, what would you like? Would you like a specific landscape camera, or would you like a specific all-rounder in this case? But when we start discussing street cameras and portrait cameras and hybrid cameras, then all of those are different again. So it's all up to you, the user, the buyer, what you want to achieve with your camera. And we will help you with that. If you come in, or you want to call us or email us or Facebook Messenger us, we're here to help.
You haven't said your normal one.
Which is what? Oh, carrier pigeon or smoke signal.
Yeah.
Semaphore. Be there with your ping pong paddles.
Oh, right. What's the word? Brilliant. Fantastic, Joel. Well, thank you very much. Likey. As always, big thank you. Look at all these comments, Joel. Look what I've had.
Lovely
Absolutely
people.
Loads of them. So thank you ever so much for joining in live in the conversation.
We'll have to think of more clickbaity
I know it's worked, doesn't it? Oh, this is the problem now, is that we've started something, haven't we? So, no, but honestly, we do appreciate it. We absolutely love seeing live comments come in. So, obviously, if you can rewatch this at any time, if you are rewatching it, we do this this show episode. What do we call it? Episode every week on a Friday at 4:30 p.m. So you can always join into the live comments as well. So we absolutely love having people join in the conversation with us. If you haven't done already, please make sure that you share this video as well. Tell all your friends about what we do here and also at Cambrian Photography. Go on to our Facebook and YouTube pages, hit the subscribe, like, or whatever associated button you'd like to push. And what the ding. And as always, big thank you to everyone watching. And oh, hold on, I got to cue up this video, haven't I? Before I say the final words.
Honestly, it's like amateur hour.
Oh, dear me, there it is. Right. Again, big thank you to everyone watching. Thanks, Joel. We'll see everyone next week. Bye-bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.